Hi YouTube, it's Barb Sawyer. So today we're going to be doing a story time. Now this is a story that I wrote in 2005 and it was a rescue that we did in the Northeast regarding Bengals and Abyssinians and some mixtures of the two. And I'm going to be linking two breeders, one who is no longer breeding Abyssinians but can, steer you in the right place to go if you're looking for one, and another one who is a friend of mine who has been breeding Bengals for years. And both of these ladies have the most incredible looking cats. I would highly recommend if you are looking for that breed. But enough about that. This is a story about 56 cats with two cats that kind of wormed their way into my heart a little bit more than the average. And this story is also co-written with a girl who adopted one of these cats. So when her story comes in, I'll let you know. So let's get into it. All right. I call this a tale of two rescues. This is a story of two very special rescue cats and the angels who adopted them. The story begins August 2005. We were about to receive an unusually large amount of rescue cats and kittens from a sad and tragic situation in the Northeast. Our garage had been converted to Rescue Central, as my children called it, and cages that had been generously donated were set up everywhere. Litter boxes, water, and food dishes were filled, and cat toys were in every cage. We were eagerly anticipating our load of kitties. We were told that in this rescue were Bengals and Abyssinians, and quite a few were mixed. And those of you who are familiar with both breeds undoubtedly just shuddered at the thought of the energy levels that these mixed cats would have. And I was certainly curious to experience it firsthand. When the cats arrived, carrier after carrier was set inside our garage. Some cats were beautiful, other cats made me wince as I saw the marks of starvation, but all of them had one thing in common. They were terrified. There was one kitten in particular that caught my eye. He was a Bengal Abbey mix, about 3 months old, and he appeared to be in good physical condition. He was also gorgeous, steel blue with a Bengal body. I sighed with relief when I saw him. Here was an easy adoption. I was wrong. We had decided before the cats came that we had to come up with a better name than a Bengal Abbey mix, and chose the name Blabby. It rolled off the tongue with ease, and we needed to find some humor in the situation. On closer examination, it was clear that Blabby was finding no humor in his situation. He stared morosely out of his carrier, muttered four-letter kitty swears. He was not happy. I spoke gently to him and carefully opened his carrier. Like a missile shot straight from hell, he sailed over my shoulder and landed 10 feet away. I won't pretend to tell you that the next 30 minutes were pretty. Like an Olympic athlete, he jumped, leaped, and flew all over the garage until we were finally able to get him into his cage. Outraged, he ponged up and down in his new digs. For those who are confused with the term ponged, it's when a cat jumps straight up and down. It sounds funny, but it is a sign of terror in a cat. We wiped the sweat out of our eyes and went back to taking cats out of carriers and setting up cages. One of the last cats to come out was a gentle-looking male Bengal about 6 months old. I couldn't see much more than his face, but I was certainly encouraged by his facial expressions. I opened the carrier and he strolled out. Our appreciative looks quickly turned to horror as we saw the rest of his body. He was a skeleton, and a skeleton with almost no hair. Visions of ringworm danced through my head, but the vet who had examined and spayed and neutered all of these cats assured us that they had tested negative for ringworm. This poor cat had lost all of his hair because of severe malnutrition. I knew right away that the chances of this guy being with us for a long time, perhaps forever, were very high. Now, the Northeast people are wonderful. There was a network set up with Pet Finder, contact people who did initial interviews, and if they passed, my phone number was given to them. I was overwhelmed with phone calls. Now, my children were right. Not only was our garage rescue central, it was also crammed with people who were interested in adopting. I've never seen anything like it. Most people came to adopt, but there were some who just cruised around our garage, staring into cages, and giving me this uncomfortable feeling that this was nothing more than a pet store. I heard one man explaining to a few people that one particular cat was of interest to him because of his great horizontal pattern. Needless to say, I did not allow him to adopt. In the meantime, Blabby designated himself the welcoming committee for every visitor. He howled, ponged, and shouted obscenities to everyone who walked past his cage. Once he even kicked litter into an elderly lady's face, and then a woman showed up from Connecticut. She was a half an hour early for her appointment, and I'm sure she was a little bit deaf. She strode up to me and bellowed, "Are you Barb?" When I confirmed that I was, she shouted, "I want the most difficult, hard-to-place cat that you have." My eyes couldn't help straying over to Blabby's cage, where he was giving me the finger behind the woman's back. I quickly looked back at her and asked her what her reasoning was for wanting to adopt a cat with these specific qualities. And a broad smile came over her face. "I understand cats," she boomed. "I've been working with hard-to-handle cats my entire life, and they always come around. Always," she emphasized, with her finger pointing at my chest. "I just lost my cat of 18 years, and I want a new challenge." I sat her down and waved towards Blabby's cage. I explained that he was a small kitten, but I'd never been so afraid of anything in my life. I told her that my husband wouldn't go near him. I mentioned how he greeted potential adopters, and he was single-handedly responsible for making some people leave with sour looks on their face in less than 5 minutes. She got up abruptly and stomped over to his cage. She got down on eye level, and eye to eye they sized each other up. Blabby broke eye contact by spitting directly into her eye and breaking wind at the same time. Quite an accomplishment for one so young. "I want him," she announced. And then she said something to me that sealed the deal. "I don't care if he spends the next 6 months, 6 years, or 16 years under my bed. I want him." Needless to say that Blabby went home with her that day, but not before he had one more joke at my expense. He bit me as soon as I put him into the carrier and looked up with savage glee after he removed his teeth. I watched them back out of the driveway and with blood dripping from my hand and said a silent prayer not only for Blabby's angel, but also for her limbs and extremities. Fast forward ahead 3 months. Blabby's angel emailed me with an update and pictures. Blabby's name was now Mick. He slept on her bed every night and followed her around all day. He was the love of her life, and to prove it, she sent me pictures. There they were, Blabby and the angel, ensconced in a loving embrace. My second angel is a girl by the name of Michelle, and she keeps in touch with me, and when I asked her for permission to mention her in a write-up, this is what she sent me. It was a hot and humid day in Boston of August of 2005, and I was getting ready to move into my very first one-bedroom apartment. The prospect of living alone for the first time after college was a bit daunting, so I began to entertain the idea of getting a cat. This decision, I felt, would make living alone so much more bearable. So, as I began searching the internet 2 weeks before my big move, it didn't take long to find the posting on petfinder.com for a Bengal and Abyssinian rescue. If I was going to get myself a companion, I thought, it might be just this rescue. I was given the contact information for a girl named Barb just outside of Portland, Maine, who would be rescuing and fostering over 50 of the Bengals. After 1 week of contemplation, I finally got in touch with Barb, who I will forever revere as having a heart of gold, and describing the second rescue cats to me, some of whom sounded completely traumatized. She assured me that most of them were beautiful pedigreed cats that would just require some TLC. When I told her that I was actually thinking of adopting a male kitten, she began to tell me about a little 16-month male who had a phenomenal personality but was physically in rough shape. I listened as she described him as being emaciated and visually bald due to severe malnutrition. I listened to her as she described his personality: affectionate, lovable, sweet, alert, outgoing. I remembered telling the breeder that the little boy that she had just described sounded perfect. In retrospect, she must have thought I was insane for focusing only on the positive qualities and not for fixating on the potential health risks that this cat was facing. It took me about 1 more week to make the 2-hour drive up to Maine, where I would go pick out my new companion. I had called Barb a day before to see if the emaciated, hairless boy was still there. She assured me that he was, and that many people had come throughout the week and passed over him, adopting the more beautiful, healthy, yet similarly traumatized cats. I called Barb again the morning that I was slated to drive up to Maine and reiterated that I was coming for the hairless boy and not to let anybody get to him before me. Was I completely out of my mind for thinking that anyone would actually want him? In my mind, I couldn't imagine why not. When I arrived at Barb's house, she took me into a room where she had the remaining 9 rescue cats separated by sex. I immediately began searching for the hairless boy. Meanwhile, there was another woman who had just arrived moments after me and who was also looking at the male cats. My heart was pounding as I searched for the boy for whom I had come. It didn't take long for him to reveal himself to me. He came right up to me in his cage and began sniffing me through the mesh enclosure, staring at me with the most gorgeous light green eyes. When I looked at him, all I could see were those eyes and a perfect pink nose. Barb was standing right beside me as I opened the door to his cage and began to pet the skinny little boy. He practically leapt into my arms. I was instantly in love and turned to Barb and said, "Can I have him?" Barb's eyes widened and she smiled and said, "Of course." My heart leapt for joy as I felt I had just won the lottery. The experience then became sobering as Barb and I began to speak of the logistics. She went over some of the potential health concerns, such as his low weight, loss of hair, and a minor eye problem. I was completely overwhelmed by my new endeavor and responsibility, but still felt quite fortunate at the same time. This whole experience of going to Maine, seeing all of the poor animals that needed homes, and selecting one who would require some extra care was wonderful, but also nerve-wracking. I had literally just moved into my first apartment the day before, and it still had boxes to unpack, a job to get back to, and jury duty to attend. Luckily, my parents helped me settle in and babysat for the new kitty for the first few days while I got things sorted out. It was important for me to give the little survivor a name that was well suited for him. I tried many names to see which one fit, such as Teddy and Cheetah, but finally I settled on the name Noah, and it was the one. While I'm not a parent, the next 2 weeks felt akin to bringing home a newborn baby. I didn't sleep. I watched Noah like a hawk and called the vet every day with questions. Noah acclimated to his new home very well, considering that he had been living in the most deplorable conditions for the first months of his life. I thought that his attitude and spirit showed the utmost resilience. It took many months, but Noah's coat slowly grew in. His weight went up, and his spirit never wavered. He's a healthy, striking marble Bengal, and the sweetest companion I could have ever asked for. Now, Michelle Barron is an angel of the first degree, because I was so worried that Noah would never get adopted. He looked like hell. He looked horrible. He looked like he was about to die, but she did. And I wish that I still had the pictures of Noah and Blabby. They were on a computer that crashed. Blabby, it's funny to think of, but imagine a kitten that's that vicious. And he loved his angel. So that is a story about the time that I rescued 56 cats. I do believe that as a breeder myself, I'm no longer a breeder, but as a breeder myself, I do believe in rescuing. So I do want to thank you all for listening to my story time. Please make sure that you're subscribed, hit the thumbs up button, smash that notification bell, and I will see you later.